again, a really super, very, very comprehensive presentation from Inge. I think especially for our managing authority colleagues, actually, going into such detail around the indicators, the result indicators is extremely useful, very, very useful indeed. But also, I'd like to draw your attention to the chat. And before we maybe come back and discuss some of these more advisory issues in more detail, and certainly before we proceed to the next presentation, we have a really important question, a really important comment in the chat from Barbara in Slovenia. Barbara, would you like to explain, to speak your comment? I'm sure that Inge's read it already and is ready to respond. But Barbara, would you like to explain your concern essentially? Hi. I think you're muted.
Okay, Barbara is Roy, yes.
Barbara, you're muted. Sorry, you need to.
Hello. My English is not so excellent, so this is the why I wrote so long question. But anyway, I think I can explain. I think maybe my question is a little bit about it's not very much in the context of webinar from today, but anyway, I would like to ask how to get involved small farms who are not so much fond of development and things like that. In Slovenia, we have many small farms, and I can be happy we have also good farm advisory service with many years, but all these years we work with small farms. Our project is sometimes more project from university than from farmers, and we are for sure not happy with that, but it's better this than nothing. We really would like to find better interest in farms. Maybe now we work with medium farms. These are they are so, but on the other way, I know that Europe is very much interested in small farms, and I personally like to work with small farms. This is why I dare to ask this question. How can I work with small farms? How to get them to think? Maybe the other thing, maybe I was also thinking, when there is a project, the farms get the minimum money. And all other institutions get, but I don't think that maybe the money is the most important, but anything. And anyway, it's the money is important.
Yeah.
To be equal.
Barbara, thank you very much for this question. This is a really important question. It is relevant to other member states as well, and I can guarantee you that it's a very important question here in Romania as well, for example.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is
I tried to ask this because, you know...
it's very important, and thank you very much. Inge.
Yes, we care a lot for small farms, whether they are in Romania or in Slovenia or wherever in Europe we have them. With our hobby farmers, we have the same in the West. And I would say every giving advice is always based on what is the situation of the farm and the farmer. Does he want to stay small or does he want to grow? What potential is there in the neighborhood possibly to grow or to exploit? I'm thinking about diversification activities, CSA farms, things like that, community supported agriculture, or these farms where the consumers can come and pick their vegetables, etc. Or even my son has a flower garden where they have pay a yearly fee to every week to get their flowers, pick them themselves also. So I would say really try to start from their farm, the farmers' contacts, their views, and also very much taking into account what are their possibilities. Because, for instance, if they are hobby farmers, or if they have super busy because they have lots of things to do on their farm, even if it's a small farm, but they don't have the machinery, they could have much more busy days than maybe a somewhat bigger farm. So what I understand from what I learned from the SCAR working group from other countries is that sometimes working with other formats like interactive webinars with smaller groups, all with small farms, that they feel peer-to-peer and they feel more comfortable to talk, and they don't have to go to a place and come back. That would be probably more interesting for the younger ones. I don't see a farmer of 50 or 60 years easily joining a webinar and talking confidently there on a webinar. But for those, sometimes it's more important to just see each other on Sunday morning in the cafe and talk and join this as an advisor. So there's no unique solution for small farmers. It's looking to their needs, trying to get with the questions, this interactivity that you need as an advisor. It's not just linear advice. This is your solution. You listen, you try to analyze how can you improve their situation. And then according to the time they have, the possibilities, the financial possibilities, the time possibilities, the way they like to get knowledge served in the cafe or through a webinar, taking all these things into account to make the best of it. That's the only thing I can say. There's often from the big advisory institutions a lot of complaints about these farmers because they compare them with the bigger farmers, and of course they have other needs and they work in a different way. They are full-timers and everything. But that doesn't mean that there's no potential in small farms. In particular, now with COVID, we see a lot of potential with short supply chains. We're now having an EU network on advisors for short supply chains. We've done plenty already of research work and thematic networks also, one thematic network on short supply chain. So there is knowledge, but we have to bring it to the advisors so that they can work with it. And this is typically also agritourism is a typical, but social care farming is another one which is less usual for these small farms. It depends a bit on the character also of the small farmer. If he's really not very social, you don't have to try to make him work with a handicapped person. But if he is a jolly fellow and he's not mad, if the handicapped person who comes on his farm to help him does something wrong, but he takes him with the arm and said, "Wow, that's a good one. Well," and he makes a laugh of it, and next time it's better, and he has the social capacities to bring this to the guy. So I would say there's still plenty possibly potential, even in mountain areas, etc., for small farms. But I think we need to share the solutions better. A thematic network for small farms, for instance, why not? We have this open horizon calls where existing knowledge can be shared, where multi-actor people come together around important subjects. We had one for the newcomers now. There's one Farm Well. Is that only on smart farm, on small farms?
No, Farm Well, yeah.
That's more on social issues that small farms often have. So it's a bit linked, but not in full. But you could imagine that there could be a thematic network, for instance, to share all the good practices on how to advise small farms. Or even an EU advisory network we could put on that to share experiences. Because I think if from all what I hear here and there, if I would put all this together, I would already have a nice list. And I'm sure if more people do that, the list will be even much longer. So it's a question of experience and trying and looking. And
your enthusiasm for small farms is greatly appreciated, Inge, and I think your examples of small farm diversification from Northwest Europe, from your own region, are absolutely fascinating. However, also in this corner of Europe, in this part of Europe, there is a very simple reality, is that small farms often are at the edge of financial viability. They're struggling to run viable farm businesses, either on a commercial or a semi-subsistence basis, with their own labour and with their family labour. Yeah. And so the point that Barbara made, I think, is also fundamentally important. It's not just being able to connect with small farmers. It's not just being able to motivate small farmers. It's also compensating small farmers for the time that they need to give, because the time they're spending in a meeting for an operational group is the time away from milking the cows or mowing for hay or whatever. And in that respect, I'm really interested to see the suggestion, or rather to put for the example which Simona from Italy has put into the chat about a simplified cost option for paying back farmers to compensate them, I guess, appropriately for their participation in common meetings and activities of the OGs. Simona, could you give us just a little bit more detail, because this is a really rather important issue.
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Yes, I believe that this methodological document was already shared together with some of you during a meeting in 2018 in Umbria, in region Umbria. This is basically a methodology which we developed just because we have this chatting with the operational groups and some people engaged in operational groups. This problem was raising by them. And so, I mean, we developed some 4 methodologies for simplified cost for paying back the farmers for their commitment to some common activities carried out during the operational groups implementation. So one is, I mean, basically the 4 methodologies are based on the basis is the income, the average income provided, for example, for the from the FDN. So we developed this methodology based on the FDN average of income, and another methodology. I mean, I'm going from heart. So another methodology was about the average of income, but based on national contractualization of employees in agriculture. And of course, here we saw also to the different level of employees and the qualifications and so on. And other 2 methodologies are based on the tariffs used in H2020 project and tariffs used in if I don't remember, but is in Erasmus project probably. I don't remember well what is the 4th one, but I mean, because in some of these programs, European programs, it is already foreseen the opportunity to pay back the farmers. So, I mean, and about this document, methodological document, which is in Italian, of course, it's been implemented by the operational groups. I had also good feedbacks from the operational groups, and it is our aim also to somehow retake this document, this methodology, and propose it through I2Connect project as one of the tools that we have to deliver under the I2Connect project, A2020.
Simona, thank you very, very much for that. That's really very inspiring, and I think there's lots of food for thought there. So whilst we're actually digging into some of these more specific technical questions, let's actually, I'm looking to a very interesting question from our Greek colleagues in the chat, which is pointing out in the current period, we have measures, and during the programming, there were these very detailed fiches available for each RDP measure, introducing the measure, providing all sorts of interesting background, linking to priority areas, etc. I mean, very detailed programming documents. And the question from Greece is there likely to be something similar for the new period? Because there are some areas that do need maybe some clarification. And this is an interesting example, specific reference to advisory services, setting the scope and limitation for new themes, such as the social dimension. Will there be guidance available, Inge?
Well, this guidance is not very difficult because it's already in the legislation in Article 13.2 that the social dimension should be covered, and that all member states are expected to provide advice. So the two together means that you have no limitations for new themes as social dimensions. On the contrary, you're even obliged to cover them. But now, with regard to the fiche, we have these fiches already internally. So they are spread among the GeoHubs, the desk officers, and they will probably be refined because of the questions that come in. We don't think they are mature enough to already send them to the member states and then afterwards have to say, oh, we forgot something, or this or that, or we should absolutely add. So we don't want 10 versions. So now CAP interventions, not CAP plans, but interventions start coming in. I had 2 last week, tomorrow another one. So we're discussing CAP interventions, and a lot of issues come up at those moments, of course, that might not be covered in these fiches. So we are enriching those fiches. And I think on the long term, for as far as I've understood from the colleagues of the coordination, the intention is definitely also to give them to the member states. I can understand the problem that you would like to have them now. I can see that it could be useful, but I would say for the time being, you have people from the horizontal units who can help you on the specific issues. In the coordination unit, you have one for environment, one for risk management, one for leader, one for etc. We have the people in our unit for knowledge and innovation, AKIS, training, support, etc. We also have persons for cooperation in the cooperation, and also training and advice is covered under the coordination. So we have a number of people working together to make these fiches, and they are there, but we really want to make them as good as possible and try to cover all the questions that are coming in now from various, not only from the first fiches, the first CAP interventions that come in, sometimes with mistakes in it, but also from what happens in the GREX around the indicators and the questions that come there. So, because there's a part on indicators and how to handle indicators in each of these fiches. So definitely they are coming. That's something I can say, but I can't say when.
Okay, thank you for that, Inge. We also have a very specific question from Dimitar in Bulgaria, asking for your opinion on a specific issue. Dimi, would you like to ask a question, please?
Yes, the question is short, because in the presentation Inge mentioned that the advisors are important for dissemination of results from the operation groups. But as I see from the statistic, only 9% of the members of operation groups are advisors. And I think maybe it is better to think maybe also the advisors to be as a mandatory part of operational groups, or operational groups to have a duty to distribute also results via the advisory services?
Yes, yes. I think we've also had the same view that we should much more communicate on our operational groups, and that this information should definitely be arriving at the advisors. But in principle, we saw this for the CAP network, like the example that we will see or have seen, we will see from Poland. There they have mixed the EIP network with, so the CAP network of the future, let's say, for the innovation strand, with the advisors. So they are one and the same, and they manage all the knowledge. Because in principle, we thought that this would be typically the work of the EIP networks, the CAP networks, because they can get everything from Brussels, from all the operational groups from all over Europe, from all the multi-actor projects, and then add the national projects or whatever is interesting, filter it, present it in meetings. But the Polish example exactly shows that it can be done as well by an advisory service. So this all depends on how your AKIS currently works, and where are maybe the crucial organizations who can manage this. If the CAP network is weak and the advisory service is better placed to do it, it's fine. I mean, that's what I wanted to say in my very first presentation with this slide, that we are so different that we really want to take the flexible approach. And we're not going to say to you it must be done by the CAP network, although we think at first place that's their role. But it can as well be done by this back office of an advisory service, where also then not only the own advisors, but also the other private external advisors can profit from, so that it's really public knowledge that is shared for practice, and also farmers could make use of that if it's a real database that is accessible. So I think we're rather open there. So this depends a little bit on the situation in your country. And Mark, if I may, I would like to give two additions to the question that Simona added on paying for small farmers and the document she was mentioning. There are two other basic things. First of all, we find it very logic that if farmers work for an operational group, that they are paid for it. That's a certain thing. So everybody should know that. There are still people doubting about that. So we think it's normal. Why would we pay the rest of the partners and not the farmers or the advisors? And secondly, in terms of references, what she mentioned was very interesting, the FADN, employees in agriculture at national scale. They have data from this, very nice, comparing with other Horizon projects or Erasmus projects. But I would want to add one that is also used relatively frequently. We have under measure 1 the possibility to pay for replacement of sick farmers. And also there are X euro per hour that is paid for those who come to replace the farmer. And that's also typical, an amount that you might want to use to know how much to give to your farmers. So that's just to add on these 4 possibilities, a possible 5th possibility.
That's very, very useful, Inge. Thank you very much for that. And it's nice that you returned to the theme of small farms, because the discussion about small farms has been continuing in the chat, with contribution from our Greek colleagues, and also contribution from the Commission side as well, from Antonella, all of which is reinforcing the importance of really addressing this question of the inclusion, the effective inclusion of small farms into the EIP-AGRI is, and specifically operational groups, just stressing how important it actually is. Now, time is running, and I'd like to move forward. Just referring to the Google Documents again, when looking into the Google Docs, it became very apparent that actually when we're talking about national rural networks and we're talking about network support units, we have some national rural networks which are already have a long history of engaging with advisors. And we have actually several network support units which are hosted by agricultural advisory services. And one very specific example, which I'm very fond of, is in Latvia. Now we have other national rural networks or network support units who have basically no previous experience of engaging with advisors. So the question, this challenge of integrating advisors is actually a different challenge in different national contexts, and we need to be aware of that. And that's relevant to our next presentation. Our next presentation comes from Poland. It comes from the Polish Agricultural Advisory Center, CDR. It's made by the Deputy Director, Krzysztof Janiak. And what's really interesting about Poland is the existing very high degree of integration between the National Rural Network, an EIP-AGRI network, and their existing advisory service and associated advisory networks. So it's a very strong existing example, a model, which is very inspirational in its own right. But then what's really interesting is the way in which they are also approaching their existing model in order to strengthen it. They're taking a very strategic approach. And it's also the approach that they're taking to managing change, which is also very, very interesting and very relevant.